Welcome back to the Morning Blend. Well, we do our best to teach kids about life by leading through example.
But sometimes the best way for them to learn is by doing things themselves. And Jeff Wensler is here to talk about a new nonprofit organization called Pivotal Directions. The group teaches teens character and leadership in part by sending them to volunteer in very poor countries. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I didn't know that you guys knew each other.
Well, we went to high school together and we graduated together, and I ran into him recently at brunch and I heard about what you were doing. I was so inspired by it. I mean, you're really making a difference and changing lives for the better. So what inspired you?
Ryan today goes, I review movies, and Jeff's like, you know, helping people
kids.
in poor countries.
Like, same high school, right? That's what we're creating here in the Milwaukee area, I guess. But what inspired you to create Pivotal Directions?
Yeah, great question. There was a father, actually a couple fathers, just from the North Shore who approached me one day and said, you know, we have these teenagers, these boys at first, 8th grade, freshman year, and they could really use some perspective. Good kids, but you know, we're inside of the suburban bubble. And I said, well, surprise, surprise, most 14-year-olds could use some perspective. And I said, well, if you're sitting down, I have a crazy idea. When I worked for Boston College while I was getting my graduate degree, I was in charge of the international service program. So Kingston, Jamaica was the place where we went to and worked in garbage dumps and orphanages. And I said, if you're sitting down, I could really, you know, get their jaws to drop if they went through this experience safely, and that was the birth of it.
And they're young, don't you think, for this kind of experience? But I've found that very little is available for kids in that kind of middle school age. As they get into high school and college, like you did a college program, there's a lot of that kind of global immersion, or I'd say kind of shock, global shock is what you give them.
As you were hearing from Dr. Matt earlier, early intervention with anything these days is very important. So why not with our youth in terms of character and leadership and service, and getting them, expanding their horizons outside of their bubble, and to have that perspective early, you know, 8th grade, why not? And actually our 8th graders won some of our awards, our recognition for character and for leadership. So they hit it out of the park. So.
Well, and when I first talked to Jeff about this, I was impressed like you were, Ryan. In fact, I decided to send my daughter, who's in 8th grade, to a garbage dump in Jamaica's capital, Kingston, Jamaica, which is not a pretty place. It's a little scary to let your kids go on a trip like this, but I know her life is going to change because of it. And so I was impressed too, and actually decided to send her.
That's really amazing, and that's part of your program, right? And so how many of these programs have you had so far, and what do you notice, what kind of changes do you see in the kids when they come back? Yeah,
I've been doing this type of work for about 15 years, sometimes as a volunteer, sometimes as a part of a job within the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, Boston College, Marquette University, and then now that we've done Pivotal Directions, I've done, you know, 25 or so to various countries in Latin America, South America, and then these Caribbean islands, as well as in the United States. We need a lot of help, and there's a lot of perspective to be had in our own communities. So, you know, it's just fascinating amount of work, and the niche is there. You know, we're a non-faith-based organization. We take the things that, because, you know, a lot of times you hear this as a mission-based trip, but we focus on character, leadership, and service. And that's the intersection where everybody, no matter what your background is, where they agree on it.
What are some of the character building and leadership aspects that you teach?
Yeah, diversity is one of the biggest ones. Personal accountability would be another one. You know, again, getting outside of that bubble is so important, because so often we get just complacent with our lives and our friends and that type of thing. And to expand that, and we represent on one given trip, the trip your daughter will be on, there's over 10, 12 different schools and age ranges and gender, you know, mixed in with that group, and so there's diversity within that, but then diversity, you know, on these trips, and the leader comes from within on that.
I love the pictures that you shared with us. The first was a girl named Allison. She was sharing some popsicles with kids. Right. This is a young man named Will. Oh, there's Allison again. I just love that picture, because you can tell the kids are totally into her, and I just can't imagine what they get out of a trip. I know my daughter will come back changed after the trip in July. This is a boy named Will, young man. He's actually there with some of the kids who live in the garbage dump with basically no shelter. And the last picture that we have is teaching freshmen actually at Marquette. But what do you notice from the kids who go on these trips with you? And I love that you actually go on all of the trips. What do they say when they come back?
Yeah, well, Will, the one you saw, Will Gebhardt is his name, and Will, for example, a wonderful story. In that picture you see where he is actually, the first day we take the kids away from the garbage dump community in which they live, and we take them to their area zoo, and we just buddy up. So right away, Will reaches out his hand, and he's buddied up with that young boy, and just acts as a big brother. Will came back and actually received an award for character. And actually, his mom approached me and said, you know, we get caught up in schedules, and we get caught up in hockey practice and grades and advanced placement courses and all of that in our daily lives. But when he received this recognition for showing character in some very difficult circumstances, my perspective changed on my own son. And Will then found even more confidence, and he has a program that he does called Will's Goodwill, and then also he's teamed up with another boy to do a thing called Relearn, in which they go back into their own communities, into their own schools to raise used school supplies for middle school kids, and that last week of school, and when they're cleaning out their lockers, and to collect it all so that we can
so much
exactly to take down on our trips, and to some inner city school here in Milwaukee, schools that have low budgets.
Right.
So we're planting those seeds that will carry on forward.
It's amazing.
So cool.
So there are those trips, but then lots of other things that the community comes back and Pivotal Directions sort of pays forward into other programs and things. It's amazing,
Right.
Jeff, really.
I agree with you.
Thanks.
I'm excited about Callie's trip too. Okay, so we're going to give the website. It's a great site where people can find out about trips you have coming up. There is at least one other trip that has some space available,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, actually, yes, on our website, pivotaldirections.org, we have some room on our different international trips to Guatemala, to Kingston, Jamaica, as well as 2 local camps. One at Marquette University, that's an overnight in July, in which we serve in our own community for kids 7th grade to 10th grade, and then a day leadership camp that is at Concordia University, and that's a 3-day day camp.
I love it. It's fantastic. Nice to have you on the show.
Yeah,
Thanks for
good to see
coming
you
back.
guys.